Sacred Purpose podcast loves. This interview has been a journey, and I'm really I feel so softened by the opportunity to really get to dive into this conversation today. I have a dear, incredible soul sister here with me today, Beth Clayton, and the backstory on this is we have tried this interview multiple times, and life has kept redirecting it to this moment. So it feels like some sort of divine intervention that maybe she and I still don't even know yet why this interview was meant to happen in this moment. But I have some sneaking suspicions that it was just meant to come from this much softer place that we are both in right now. And it feels like a
Yeah.
portal that possibly our listeners can also connect with and relate to. So I feel like it's just going to be one of those really yummy conversations with your soul sister. Grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and dive in. I hope you feel seen by this conversation and witnessed and really nourished by it. Beth has so much wisdom to share. Her heart is just so enormous and can hold so much, and just her ability to connect in sisterhood is something I am in awe of. And her words and everything about her sensuality and just her beauty and the art and the way that she shows up in the world is something to be in awe of. And so I'm super excited to be with you today, Beth. Welcome. Thank you for making time for this conversation again and bearing with me through all the portals we have jumped through to make this happen.
Oh my gosh. I mean, this is like my absolute, it's my fave. It's my fave. And I agree. What I was going to say is like, as soon as you mentioned well, maybe this is supposed to be divine timing for when we're having this interview or this conversation rather. And like, I just immediately almost started crying because I feel the same way. I mean, I did start crying because I feel the same way. I feel like very porous and softened right now, I think, in a way that would have been different than even a couple months ago when we would have had this conversation. And I know, like, my new slogan, you said, "Are you ready to do today?" And I said, "I'm raw and ready," because that is like my new slogan for literally everything I'm showing up to is like raw and ready. These can
Yeah,
exist in the same hands. Um, so yeah, I'm right there with you, and I love nothing more than having these conversations, Lisa, and
yeah.
especially with you. And thank you for all your kind words, because I could say all of those things about you too. And just what a treat to be here with you today.
Yeah, thank you. Raw and ready. I think I'm gonna be borrowing that a lot right
Raw and
now.
ready. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
gosh. So, yeah, let's dive in. Some of the things that, we've been through together, right? We did the retreat recently in Mexico together, and then I know you recently also hosted a retreat of your own. And something that I'm just
yeah,
marveling at, you know, and the life, right? You're mothering, and then, I'm sure we'll get into it at some point, what it's like also,
yeah.
having aging parents and how we're just navigating all these things. That stood out
Yeah.
for me is just still showing up in all these ways. That raw and ready sort of anthem that we have right now, right? And even showing up
Yeah.
to lead in space like that when, we're feeling all the feels and all the rawness. And again, also that readiness of trust of like, I must have been prepared for this in some way, even though we feel so
Yeah.
very blindsided or perhaps even unprepared in some ways. I'm curious if you can just like, that's not even a question, but just maybe go down that path with me, because I feel like it's something that in these moments when we are still wanting to show up, not even expected to, but even desiring to, right? In those
Yeah.
moments where we are walking through not even disruption, but maybe perhaps even grief.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, grief has been like my buddy these last couple years. I think that these last couple years have taught me so much about what I talk a lot about the good girl. You know this, Lisa, and the architecture of the good girl, the anatomy of the good girl that lives in every single one of us, and how it's different in every single one of us, how she shows up, how she protects us. I have come to realize that through my own experience and having witnessed so many others, that grief is one of the number one experiences that the good girl is avoiding. We would think it
Mm,
is terror. We would think it is, um, you know, shame. And
mm,
yes, all of those for sure. But to me, I feel like in my own journey, what I had always been avoiding, always, was the grief that came with the knowing.
mm. What do you mean by
And
that?
the knowing is what went. I feel like what that means to me is like the knowing what's available and what's not available. And my own good girl would do anything not to see that, because
Mm,
I love very deeply and intensely, as most of us do.
yeah.
And there's grief with clear seeing a lot of times. And sometimes we're making a decision to open space for the grief that comes with choosing ourselves. And sometimes grief just finds us as a part of life. But what I have found is the more I have tended grief as a part of my experience over the last couple of years, the more I have opened to a deeper experience of life and a deeper experience of myself and a deeper
Mm,
experience of my own heart.
mm.
I think it's been the thing I had been avoiding for a very long time, but I would have no way of knowing that until it began to walk up the basement stairs, as I call it,
Oof.
because I had done enough work in my own system that my body felt safe enough to feel it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And when we're talking about raw and ready and how we lead in all of these different ways, I'm just so grateful, because I'm so grateful to be releasing this idea that I'm supposed to have it figured out, like that I'm supposed to be like the teacher is like completely 100% walking the walk and never screws up and never falls on her face and is like this like spiritual teacher, because a part of me always knew it was bullshit, excuse my language. A part of me always
Yeah,
knew it
no.
wasn't totally true. And that I was scared and not completely embodied and didn't always have a visceral understanding of the things I was teaching, but I had a cognitive understanding of these things. And to be able to be in the work and know that my job is not to have it figured out. My job is to do my work, which
Mm,
is from my lived experience, holding a tight enough container and the architecture of a living field
mm-hmm.
enough that the larger energies can come through and do the work that they are supposed to do, because of the willingness that I have to show up and every single person who shows up.
Mm.
So it's been much more of a getting out of the way than it has been a learning more. And as leaders, we always get to be the ones to go first. I think that's what leadership is I go first.
Yeah, listening to you talk and just also having been blessed with the opportunity to be with you in some of these spaces. Just I'm thinking of the way that you express and verbalize and embody some of these emotions that the rest of us are feeling, perhaps when you said sometimes it's that the leader goes first, to witness you processing like in real time what it is you are going through. I think
Yeah.
for sure has helped me see how that plays out. I think oftentimes many of these things are hidden. We keep them to ourselves. We grieve by ourselves. We close the door. We turn off the lights, right? And it feels like a very lonely process sometimes. And so
Yeah.
it's hard to learn that, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
feel that it's even normal or acceptable, right? And I think when you said that the good girl protects us from these things, I hadn't ever heard it phrased that way. Of course,
Yeah.
because this is you and, the creeping up the basement. This is what I'm talking about to our listeners. Like the way that you even can verbalize some of these things really paints a picture for what that experience is like and allows permission for that to be safe to experience.
Thank you for saying that. I I'm learning so much right now. And as we were sharing before, like I'm learning through the humbling. I'm
Hmm.
not learning through the that's been the greatest teacher for me because we can take all these certifications and courses and leadership and how to do this and how to do that and and how to hold a space and how to be trauma informed and how to make sure you're not screwing with somebody's process and how to not project and how to not what you need to do so there's not counter transference or name it quickly and like all of these different things that happen right in these like living beings coming together in relationship in all of these different complicated beautiful ways, and I am just learning so profoundly through being humbled over and over. That has been like the main thing is just like
Hmm.
stop trying to figure it out, feel it, the answers will come later. But like in the willingness to feel it means that we can't figure it out in real time, so we have to be allow ourselves to be humbled. So and that's not my tendency because my internal monologue is always, okay, if I'm going through something difficult right now, how do I immediately make it teachable for others before I've even felt it?
uh,
Like that has been my MO for so long, is how do I make this teachable? It's been a protector.
yeah.
And so I'm learning how to let life have its way with me and like let the wisdom come out of that. And it's humbling because it requires me to kind of look bad, I guess, in the way that my mind
Yeah.
would have thought that, like to look foolish, to look silly, to be exposed. I think there's a bigger willingness now to do that than there's ever been because I get that that's where like the deepest connection actually comes in. I'll give you an example. During my last retreat, there was a really big potent moment and we were up to some really big things in that retreat, and there was a moment where we were doing threshold work, we were doing threshold crossing work, and I could tell the protectors were fierce and they were up, and
Mhm.
there was truth that was not being spoken in the room. And now I always have support. I never leave a retreat alone. I'm going to say this right here and now. I will never lead a retreat alone because we need also as the leaders to have people who can check us because you know there were edges I was pushing, there were places I was not going,
Mm.
and I had an incredible leader with me, and I already knew that there was something in the field, there was truth that was not being named, there were protectors that were up, and I was having trouble figuring out how to get through without directly calling anyone
Mm.
out in a
Okay.
way that would put them into the defensive position and then immediately create even more
Uh-huh.
self-protection, right? And so I stood there for, I was like, I don't know. Like I literally was like, I don't know what to do in this moment. And that's always where the most beautiful things come through, is the I don't know.
Right.
And thank God I had this other incredible leader in her own right, Deanne Bolinder, shout out, who does a lot of S Factor work, and she's Mama Gina certified, and she does a lot of incredible pleasure work. And I often bring her in for support in my retreats, and she just came up next to me. And she's like, "We can't do it this way." We can't do it. And I was like, I know, but what do I do? She's like, I don't know, but we can't do it this way. And I
Mm.
was like, okay, okay. And so I go, she's like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. And I literally
Mm.
just stood there. I'm like, looked up and was like, help me, help me. And it very clearly dropped in, you get to go first.
Mm.
Where are you not being honest? Where are you and
Mm.
your protectors? Where can you name what's happening in you and do it in a way where you are
Mm.
unzipping? You cannot expect them to go someplace that you are not willing to go. And that's what
Right.
leadership to me is too. We cannot expect women to sit there and unzip their souls and go into the deepest caverns of themselves while we're still armored up with a distance, not letting them affect us, going to
Mm.
do our work privately in our own rooms and coming back stoic. That is not that is not relational.
No.
And so what I did do in that moment is I named how nothing was going according to plan
Mm.
and uh, how embarrassed I felt
Mm.
and how I really wished that this was going to be like my rise moment after a
Mm.
really difficult season in my life and how much I was in my own bullshit. I was up my own ass. And
Mm.
that's not why we're here. And that it's okay if this is hard for you guys. It's hard for me too. And we're going to figure it out together, but that we're not crossing this threshold unless we are all crossing this threshold together.
Mm.
And immediately something, and I'm not saying that was like my brilliance. It wasn't. It
Mhm.
was the humbling. It was the humble yourself.
Mhm.
And when I go there, something miraculous always happens.
Yeah.
And how can we be in this relationship with being humbled as being this incredible invitation while also being in our power because they don't need to be existing separately.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Oftentimes that's where the power is when we actually get to embody what we think we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
What we think we know.
Yeah.
Uh, and it just does. I mean, that's such a great example of what I was speaking to in the way that you show up. And it is many ways by in the doing, right? I've seen you and I've witnessed you, and it's given me permission to also find a way to let that ooze out of my pores, right?
Mm. Mm.
In a way that's safe, right? It feels terrifying though, right? We don't do it and we don't do that. We don't show up that vulnerable and that honest. Do we? Can we? What if we said those things out loud? What would people think, right? And yet,
Yeah.
that's what we need. That's how we grow, especially in sisterhood, in community, in matriarchal leadership, in feminine ways of embodying exactly what we need to be able to show up in the world today in a way that feels authentic, in ways that we don't lose ourselves, right? In the ways we get to drop that good girl story that's holding us back, actually.
Yeah. And it's like the two sides of the same coin because it's being able to expand into our radiance, our brilliance. You know, I know how beautiful I am inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the size of my heart. I know my capacity. I know I'm grateful for the gifts that I have. And I am fallible. I am like a fraud sometimes. I am still learning how to be in integrity with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to do a lot. And and I can lead anyway because
Mm-hmm.
as long as there's a willingness to go, it's like that, can we be in both equally? and see those both as part of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
We get when we go to the collapse of I'm so pathetic and I'm such a and here my and like that's not going to work. And when we go to like the false bravado, that's not going to work. So we have
Mm-hmm.
to be in a way where we are humbled enough to be like, yes, I'm amazing, and I'm also really pathetic sometimes. And both of these things are true. And I'm very embarrassing to myself. And also, I am taken by myself, and my breath is taken away by myself sometimes. And both of these
Yes.
things can be true. And isn't that the way it is with children, too? Like, there are times with my own children that I am just like, oh my God, you took my breath away. And then there's times where I'm
Mm.
like, I literally can't with you right now. Like, I cannot believe this is happening in front of me. And can I hold all of that
Mm.
in being cherished? And I'm learning how to do that for myself. And I'm learning how to make that more transparent, because if I can't make that more transparent, if I can't own my fuck upness, then I can't own my light. And I think we
Mm.
try to do one without the other, and it never works. And it's part of
Mm-hmm.
what's so painful for people is
Yeah.
we keep parts of us locked away as leaders while expecting the people that we are leading or holding to show us all of it.
Mm.
That doesn't mean they're responsible for holding us. That's a different agreement. But
Ooh.
allowing them to peek behind the veil and see the humanity fully. And one of the things I appreciate about Nisha so much, who's holding us in a circle
Mm-hmm.
right now, is she models that
Yeah.
so beautifully. She's in the circle with us. She is in the humanity with us. She is not above us. She's not below
Mm-hmm.
us. She's fully in her power and fully in her humanity at the same time. And I really think that is a template I needed, because that's the only way that I really know how to do this.
Yeah. She really does model that exceptionally. I don't want to say well, but it's beautiful the way she models that.
Yeah.
And it's what, yeah, there's a lot to be learned from that. And what you said, I think, is really key, because to show up that way, but also not to have that how did you frame it? That it's a separate agreement, right? If we're we're holding the space together, right? But we aren't necessarily holding her in that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that it would be impossible to
No.
at all. I do think there are moments where that can happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot
But
of nuance there, but yeah,
there's
it's
so much nuance there. Yeah.
yeah, a beautiful space, and sometimes the container does the work for you, right? When you've set the intention for it, like
Yeah.
it already takes on its own energy for what will happen and evolve in that space. And I do love to trust that as well, that it's got us.
Yeah.
And okay, so as you were talking about this willingness to see all of you, right? If we're going to
Hmm.
see the messed up parts, and the how else will we be able to show our light and own that too, and have that
Yeah.
be received, right? Have our darkness
Hmm.
received and our light received. And I know you
Yeah.
know that you do a lot of intimacy work, and before we hit record, I wished I had hit record, so I kind of want to see if we can touch on that a little bit, because you had so much
Mm.
brilliance coming through that I wanted to dive into a little bit more, between that dark woods of self-discovery is what that feels like to me. I may be getting this wrong,
Yeah.
to then how that transitions and plays out into relationships, intimate relationships. And that can be, you know, sisters, parents, lovers, children. Kind of curious about that threshold between that inner discovery into the relationships.
Well, one of the most amazing things I think, and I don't know if you would agree with this, is just being someone who is a healing ally, who holds spaces for women, who's witnessed so many journeys with women over, the last, I've been doing this 15, 16 years, at least in this way, for 15 or 16 years at this point. And it's so great because you also get to be grown in the you're always grown. You're like, I'm holding the lantern, like, right ahead of the women. I've traversed it once or twice, maybe three times, and then I'm leading women down the path, Um, and I'm always kind of on the edge. I don't know if that's just how I'm built or how we're meant to do this, but I'm always kind of on the edge with what am I learning in real time? How do I feel enough of it that it is metabolized, that I have earned the wisdom from this experience to bring that forth without rushing it, or without sitting in it way too long, and so for me, the past couple of years has been really interesting because I've been on a healing path for a really long time. And around, I would say 18 months ago, almost 2 years ago, there was just like a huge, I think I moved into a different stage of development. I call this
Mm.
the dark woods or the wild terrain, where I had done all this healing. Things felt amazing. I thought, like, oh, I'm on the rise, like everything's going to happen now, like the career is going to take off. I have all the amazing relationships now. And I'm so wise and I've learned so much and I have so much to share with my wisdom, and like, I didn't realize how much my unique good girl, my very stealthy good girl had traded in a one version of herself for a more sophisticated, elegant, spiritually evolved seeming good woman, good coach, good leader situation. I wasn't aware of that at the
Ooh,
time. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, I had no idea because things felt so good. They felt so
Mm.
good. But then there were like multiple earthquake eruptions that happened. And at the time, it felt like everything was falling apart. And everything was turning sideways, which is often what it feels like when we are tossed into the dark night of the soul or tossed into the dark woods. And it feels so unfair and like,
Hmm.
But what I
Yeah.
realized in those years, um, it was almost as if every buffer that I had used to avoid my own pain was taken away. Every illusion, that was almost the thing, but not the thing, felt like it was stripped. Anything that I would have, because of that like stage of development that I was in, that I was grasping to as being the answer, was like
Mm.
drifting away. So there was so much that felt like it was going sideways and it was very painful. But I had done enough work at that point that I had myself enough to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying at one point, Lisa, that like in the moments like this, the people you think are going to be there are not always
Mm.
there. But there's new people that appear that you would never have guessed would be on the path. And there's these beautiful, magical lessons and
Mm.
experiences that are unique to that time that really couldn't have come in any other way. And I, even though the time felt at times torturous, honestly, for my pain, what wound up happening is it was so cliche in the sense that it was like, wow, the light is found in the dark. But in the moments where I was screaming, crying in the fetal position, using every tool I had, was the moment I would feel light enter.
Mm.
The moment I was surrendering and allowed myself to be humbled by the experience rather than fighting for my version of
Mm.
things, the more I would feel a presence inside of me, the more I would be able to feel guided. And during that time, there was a moment which I'd been dancing with alcohol, I think, for the better part of 2 decades, in an
Mm.
addictive relationship with it. Tortured myself over it many times, gave in, would just be like, fine, it is the way it is. Then it would start drinking again and deeper, 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 it's going deeper again.
Mhm.
And one day I just woke up. I was dancing. It was just the movement. I do movement work as part of my spiritual practice. And I just heard words that were like, that's done now.
Mm.
You're not going to have to worry about it. And it's
Mm.
not going to be hard. And I stopped drinking that day.
Wow.
But when I stopped drinking is when the sensitivity of my nervous system woke up even more. So
Ah,
you think it's
how
over,
nice.
but actually
How
it's
fun for
about to get
you.
more intense, sweetheart,
Oh, yay.
and,
Ah,
I had ADHD my whole life and didn't know till recently. So, like, wow, I'm very porous energetically, very
mm,
easily overwhelmed, very deeply feeling. And I had to go deeper to have myself.
mm,
Um, but during this time, I was like, what the F happened? How did all of this fall apart? I was determined that if all of this pain that I didn't understand how it turned sideways, like if it was going to have its way with me, then I was going to make something beautiful out of it.
mm,
There was that underlying devotion the whole time. Like, yes, I will allow this to humble me, but something beautiful is going to come from this.
mm.
And that was with me the whole time. And in those dark woods moments, my muse, my creative self came out and started creating. And I started to see where my good girl had been confused, very confused about um, how she had essentially betrayed me, but not meaning to, very much meaning to care for me.
Right.
But how she had been begging, how she had been overreaching, how she had been waiting to be chosen, how she had been waiting to be saved and waiting to be fought for in all the wrong places.
Yeah.
Because of very early wounding, this is what I call the grief from the basement, walking up.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And when that level walked up, I was like, oh, this has been the thing all along. And I started to work with that grief directly. And that's when I became the missing part in my body that had been
Mm,
outsourced and wreaking havoc. Not that other people's stuff wasn't also involved, but I'm talking about like my stuff.
mm-hmm.
And I could start to see how that same thing also shows up in all of the women that I work with. And
Yeah.
especially when we've been doing this work for a long time, it's so subtle. It's not like
Yeah.
glaring in the obvious ways. It's like we get to be so hip to our
Yeah.
own edges. And that's where the humbling comes in, is that part of, they don't go away. They
Yeah.
adapt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're
They
clever
grow
too.
up with us, you know,
Yes.
they
Oh,
grow up right
yes.
next to us.
Oh my
And we
gosh, I
can't
love that.
kill them. That's not possible. We're in our humanity. We have a nervous system. That's not how it
Yeah.
works. Um,
Yeah. Well,
so
I just want to point something out because
yeah.
I love that you talk about that piece of you that came up from the basement as a missing piece. We are
Hmm.
so, even sometimes in these spaces, taught to like collie that off, right? To cut that off.
Hmm.
We are past this. We don't need this anymore, right? We've outgrown this part of ourselves. But the idea that this is a missing piece has grown up with us, that maybe it also can
Hmm.
be transformed and that relationship can be changed, and that is how we
Hmm.
become more whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really, I just, when I heard you say that, I was like, the missing piece that we always are trying to keep outside the
We
house
all have a room
or
in
in the
us.
basement.
We all have a room in
Yeah.
us. And my therapist said this one time, and it was so good. She's like, we all have a room in us.
Mm,
When you discover it, some people can't even acknowledge it exists
mm-hmm,
because it feels like it will end them. Like
mm,
subconsciously, they can't even acknowledge it exists. So, and that can give me profound empathy, right? Because if I
mm-hmm.
couldn't see it, as somebody who leads and has been leading healing work,
Yeah.
if I couldn't see it until I saw it, and until I was humbled enough and willing enough and safe enough in my own body
Mm-hmm,
to start for that part, that experience, that missing piece, whatever it was, to walk up and to look at that directly, like, how could I possibly expect others to be able to do that?
mm-hmm.
facing our demons is brutal and beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Because what I have discovered is the demons, the things we're so afraid of, the scary things, they are at the front of that door. And they're going to scream the loudest and get the most active when that part is ready to come back home and be called back home into us. And there will be a reckoning with them. And the reckoning is part of it. What I have come to understand is like I am obsessed with my demons. Like I love them so much because once I've experienced them, the ferocity of their devotion to me, like the absolute ferocity, they would kill for me. They would die for me. They would kill for me. They would do anything to protect my innocence and my vulnerability. But once they understand that we have ourselves, then they can just be upgraded to guardians. They can come with us for the ride in a way that's just like a lot more empowering for them and us.
Yeah. Ooh. Upgraded into guardians. See? This is you're so good. Oh my
Every
God.
image of
Okay.
Anana or any image of any goddess, what does she have with her? She has some
Yeah.
fierce primal beings that are right there. It's a lion, it's a hawk, it's a cat, it's a like there's
Yeah.
they're prey I mean they're not prey animals, they're predators.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's the title of your book, Upgrading Your Demons to Your Guardians.
Yeah.
At
So
least
many
a
book
chapter.
so many
At
book
least a
ideas.
chapter.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's really beautiful. And some of these things that we do here, right? You find light in the darkness that do sound so cliche. And then, you're
Yeah.
going through it and you're like, oh, I get it now. There's a reason
Yeah.
that's cliche. Like, oh, that's a real thing. Like at a
Yeah.
different visceral level that you never really, leaned into. You see it in the poetry and think, oh, wow, that's really beautiful. And then you experience it and you're like, God, this actually kind of sucks. It's
Oh God,
just,
yeah. It's
ugh.
awful. Yeah. Yeah, well, I think it's like there's those moments that you like think you've gone through. You're like, wow, that was a
Yeah,
real descent.
so
And you're like, oh my
profound.
God,
So
that was
profound.
like that. Yeah, and it might be like the most profound thing we've ever experienced. Like, wow, I really went through something, right? And then you get like the cosmic, shit storm thrown at you, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't. It's
Yeah,
sort of like when COVID happened. We were like, this is a
yeah,
thing that could happen. Like we did not have a
right?
template. Like, wow, this sucks. Like really,
Yeah.
really like, oh, sucks even more than oh, we're going down. Like it
Oh, yeah.
really sucks. So yeah.
Yeah. And then you think, wow, that was really cute before when I thought that I had done some work, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh
cute
my
of
God.
me.
Yeah. It's so cute. Because the whole
Um,
point of it, I think, is that we learn how to stay with ourselves enough so that
yeah.
when like these really big things do happen, because we think, oh, there's a lesson to learn, but I think what we don't always understand is no, there's aliveness.
Mm,
It's not just a lesson. We're riding a new edge of our own aliveness. We're riding a new edge of the human experience. It's not just like, oh, what did I learn from that? It's like, no,
mhm.
our body is having a new experience
Yeah.
if we can stay with our body. Yeah.
Stay with the body and feel it. I think that to me was such a juicy part of the whole experience for me is that what a privilege it is to feel inside this body. And it
Mm,
does mean that I have to feel a lot of the things I would rather not feel, but I also, even now, recognize that as a privilege. I know for me, sometimes when I'm doing spiritual work, you're taken into this really beautiful spiritual realm It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily out of body, but it kind of is, right? And there's a little bit of an addiction there because, like, it's beautiful there. There's love, there's ancestors, there's all the guardians, there's all the protectors,
Mm-hmm.
there's all the visions and the possibility and everything. But um, the meat of that is, how can I take all that and experience it in here, in this body, in this lifetime, in the 3D where I can actually taste it, feel it, embody it, and move with it, and feel that magnitude inside here,
Yeah.
has been some of the hardest and yummiest part of the work that I do, right? How can I experience more inside this body? My senses,
Yeah.
my feeling, my taste, my smell, my touch, my heart, my emotions, right? How to experience them. Um,
Well,
yeah.
and for you too, just from what you've shared with me, there's so much that has to do with there's the emotional like descent of all of it, but there's also like the physical relationship with your body and the emotions that come with that when you've gone through what you've gone through, you know?
Hmm.
And so it's our relationship to our body too, and the
Yeah.
grief and the change and the mortality of this relation this that
Hmm.
this relationship is it's transient. I think so. I remember one time I was about to do like a psilocybin journey, and I was very nervous. I mean, it did wind up being, I think I shared this with you, like very intense underworld journey, which was just very apropos for what I had been
Hmm.
moving through. But I was nervous ahead of time because I'd never done anything like that. You know, I'd never
Hmm.
done any kind of medicine journey. And the woman I was working with was a very seasoned ceremonialist, and she'd sat with medicine many times. And one of the things she said is, you know, if I said, what if I have a trauma trip? And she's like, okay, well, that's like not necessarily really a thing. That's what people call it when their body is not prepared for what
Mm.
is coming through, right? But she's like, but the medicine does tend to meet us with our intention, and tends to meet us where we're ready and what we have the capacity to work with.
Yeah.
And she said, before I went into my journey, which very much did wind up being a very difficult underworld journey, was the light journeys are beautiful, but those are not the ones that tend to change people.
Hmm.
Like the beautiful lights and the beautiful which I have not yet I've yet to experience that in a medicine form, but like or through a medicine journey, but the transcendental is comforting
Hmm.
in that, or that at least that like celestial, like upper body, upper
Hmm.
chakras, like it's so comforting and beautiful. But what changes us is the realizations that happen in the underworld. And I've heard the same said about hospice care, that there's like a study that was done recently on what happened with people in hospice and what they see and what they experience and how they move into this altered state of consciousness before passing away. And sometimes there's a lot of very comforting. There's a lot of patterns that like 90% of individuals see very specific patterns. Their parents,
Hmm.
their loved ones, people who are there to guide them across the threshold. But
Yeah.
sometimes people have very difficult moments, and the moments are often flashbacks, or like being brought to a very specific difficult flashback, or being brought to a difficult, upsetting
Hmm.
experience. But what they named is they're all profound. That's the common thread, is they're profound for the individual.
Hmm.
And even the individuals who experience difficult things, they wind up calling somebody in to have the conversation. They wind up doing the thing that needed to be done, or saying
Hmm.
the thing that needed to be said, so that they could release and move through. Right. So it's almost like the dark
Yeah.
woods change us in a way that the light can't,
Hmm.
because the light has to come from within.
Hmm. Hmm.
in those experiences, as the steady lantern.
Yeah. Not as the escape route, but as the lantern of that. So, hmm, it makes me think of sometimes how isolating that can be without, right? When you're going through this or doing some of this work. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if this is part of the intimacy work that you do, but
Mm-hmm.
it does alter your relationships, right? Or maybe your lens of your relationships, or
Yeah.
maybe navigating that and traversing what's happening in your inner world with what's happening in, your immediate home, life, work, all the things, right?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what you would say to that, or to somebody who is maybe even navigating that, or what's worked for you in some way. Because I know for me, that was a very challenging part of, I feel different now. I am
Yes.
evolving, I'm
I feel
changing, and
different.
like, who do I even tell, right? Or I
Yeah.
now have to respond differently to things, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to acknowledge it within yourself, but then now you're showing up and trying to navigate that.
Uh, it's such a it's such a tender thing. So what I find is, and it's this is so affirmed through, a lot of the reading I've done post going through my own experience in the dark woods. So like the dark woods is where we find our own inner light, I've experienced, but it's also where we experience our sovereignty. So
Mhm.
it's where we suddenly are able to be in this place of becoming the one we were looking for, calling more of ourselves back home, calling more of our energy back home. And it's not like we're standing there every day in meditation going, I'm calling myself back home. I'm calling. No,
Mhm.
it's just that like life has a way of handing us these very unique circumstances that are going to say, you've been doing all this healing. So are you actually going to bring that into your life? Or are you going to keep like just doing the same thing you're always doing and then going to your little healing spaces
Right,
and
right,
doing your thing, but like actually
right. It
not
does kind
changing
of feel
your
like
life?
you have a
You
split
realize,
personality. Yes.
yeah, it does feel that way sometimes. And I know it's felt like that for a lot of the women I work with too, is there has to be it's initiatory in nature. It's saying like, are you actually going to do the thing? Are you've absorbed all of this understanding. You have done all of this beautiful deep work. You've gone cave diving. You've been exploring. Now, what is worth integrating into your life? And the very like difficult reality is as we start putting down patterns, I never intended to put down people. That was never what I intended to do. There was never a moment where I was like, I'm going to break up with this person, that person's gone. Never have I had those experiences. And I don't banish people from my
Hmm.
life. I'm not like, you're done and you're done. That's not how I operate. What I did notice is I was putting a lot of patterns down because I realized that the patterns that my good girl had been utilizing were causing me great pain. And that I was essentially responsible for my vulnerability and my like little girl within that I had worked so hard over the years to get to know and love and understand, and that I was her steward and that no one was going to do that for me and no one was going to do it better than me, and that my main job in life, even more than my children, even more than my son, was to be the protector of that heart, because if that heart closes, things go dark.
Hmm.
If that heart closes, then I no longer have access to actually being nurturing for the people in my life in the
Hmm.
way that I can be. So, and I start energetically leaking all over the place. And there's a lot to tend to when that happens. And so, predominantly, I'm responsible for her. And that's what I'm always encouraging other women to understand too is no, we understand this, no one's coming to save you, but I think still a part of us hopes somebody is. Really hope somebody might be though,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
really hopes, as opposed to like recognizing at this point it's about accompaniment. Yes,
Hmm.
there will be those who accompany us, but they cannot do that work for us. And if there's even a part of us that's trying to make them the one to do it, it will create suffering in our relationships.
Hmm.
So sovereignty was part of what I discovered. It sounds so cheesy, but I became the one I was looking for through action, through
Mm-hmm.
saying, I'm no longer going to do this thing. This is now what I'm doing. And I did it clunkily and I did it very
Mm-hmm.
imperfectly. So there was certainly cleanup that needed to happen because I'm like, this is the first time I'm walking. I'm falling all over myself.
Yeah.
I'm probably projecting a little and I don't know exactly what's true and what's not. But I'm doing my best to figure it out with what I have at hand, and so there was certainly cleanup to do. But what I began to see during that time is as I put down patterns with how I was relating to other humans and to myself, that
Mm-hmm.
relationship started to shift naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in ways I wouldn't have expected, which I've kind of heard you say about the dark woods too. And
Mm-hmm.
certainly in ways that were confusing and disorienting and painful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like the relationship, the way it was, could not withstand me shifting and growing and the misunderstandings that took place in the space between that happening and then also those individuals growing in their own way because they're also on their
Yeah.
own path. I'm not the only one with a path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the misunderstandings or miscommunication or the lack of architecture holding us together in a space to figure it out together or
Yeah.
alignment on wanting to figure it out together, things just shifted and changed in ways that were like, wow, that really sucks. But then
Mm-hmm.
also it made me go, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, what's what, where is this about genuine desire
Mm-hmm.
to go deeper with someone and show up to that relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Or where is this just not wanting to be rejected, not wanting to be left?
Right. Yep.
And what I found was I don't have a ton of energy or capacity right now in my life to invest in deep, deep, deep intimacy with everyone. I just don't have the capacity
Yeah. Yeah.
for that or to like figure out all of these different ways. Like, can they meet me? Can they not meet me? Are we on the same page? I don't know.
Mm.
There was just like, there's not enough there. Like, there's already, I could start to see there's already people who are present who are doing that work with me. So let's just go
Mm-hmm.
deeper there.
Yeah.
But it did require a lot of releasing,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of FOMO, a lot of like, okay, maybe I'll never know the answer to this. And if I
Mm-hmm.
want to know the answer and figure it out, what part of me is that coming from?
Yeah.
Is it from my integrity or is it from the like, I just can't stand to feel left,
Right. Right.
feel abandoned? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did
Oh
you
my goodness.
experience the same thing in your dark, in your dark woods moments? And
I mean, you just named it all so incredibly. I mean, just really beautifully. Because even when you talk about, I changed patterns, right? So instead of maybe biting my tongue or not expressing a need or,
yeah,
uh, a desire or a whatever, I would just sort of, out of fear, maybe keep some of these things to myself or just, again, keep showing up in the same way, which wasn't really serving definitely me or the relationship.
yeah,
And much like you said, that missing piece from the bottom of the basement, instead of feeling like this threshold that you so beautifully described as an initiation, right? So you take all this inner work, and then that initiation is really, and how does that translate? How are you going to bring this into your life? And what parts of
yeah,
it are you going to start to integrate? And when you start speaking that and changing those patterns versus like, well, I'm going to cut out this person and this thing, right? I think some of the
yeah,
language that often pops up is like, okay, you're going to cross this threshold. What's coming with you? What are you leaving behind? And it feels like
yeah.
this very immediate cutting off of, rather than,
Mm,
as you described, creating this opportunity of, I'm going to name the thing, I'm going to change the pattern, and then we'll
yeah,
see, right? Where that
yeah,
fits and what's going to happen next, which I think is
yeah,
really an incredible approach and a really fair and integrated approach, right?
Yeah. Well, I always say we don't put down people, we put down patterns.
I
And
love
I
that.
think
That's
where
huge.
it's so important because it's so, when we start getting into this, I call it like the head up our ass self evolvement stuff, where it's just like, well, I've grown and the others haven't. Do you know what I mean? And like, Lord knows I have been so guilty of that. And I've seen somebody, and I'm just like, okay, let's get our head like out of our ass for a moment.
Yeah.
Um, because like that can be such a trap and it can be such an illusion. You know,
Oh
it can be
yeah.
such an illusion and
Oh
such a
yeah.
trap. And like, no one can meet my depth. This is what I hear all the time. And what I've said, I've literally
Yeah.
said, no one can meet me in my depths. And like, it's just, well, it's like, yeah, because I haven't met me in my
Yeah.
depths. So like, why don't we start there? And then maybe you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Like maybe you'd be surprised if you know who you are, people show up to that, you know? Um,
Right.
but I think people get stuck in the like, what do I do about this relationship? What do I do about this career path? What am I leaving behind in this new version of my life?
Hmm.
And I think that's where we get stuck in stuff that it's not really about because, you know, relationships can shift and change and evolve. They're living fields. Um,
Hmm.
they're their own nervous system essentially because there's each person has their nervous system and then the relationship
Yeah.
dances together and as each individual changes, the relationship can change. It's more about whenever I'm at a threshold and I'm leading somebody through it, it's never about are you ending your marriage as
Hmm.
like the threshold crossing, which I mean, sometimes that action may become clear, but it's not because of the other person, it's because of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And because of the pattern they're weaving in their life now and that they're devoted to.
Mm.
So I think we can get really it can be really tricky when we start focusing on the circumstances as the ultimate thing. I always look at what's the pattern and then the circumstance and the action becomes clear out of the extension of that. It's like that's how I and there's things that are unresolved. Not everything's neat and tidy
Yeah.
and in a bow by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
I'm learning to be okay with the uncertainty and the lack of resolution unless there's integrity that I feel like I need to clean up. And that's sort of
Mm.
my guiding post of I don't know how you feel about everything that's ever happened to us. I trust the people in my life who are going to stay to ask for repair if they need repair and it's not occurring to me to immediately give them
Hmm.
repair for something. That's
Hmm.
like a non-negotiable need for me to be in intimacy is that someone can bring an upset that's worth getting upset about really to me and we can work through
Hmm.
it together. And I'm learning I can't so if I start going, is somebody upset with me? I think what am I are they might maybe they're distancing themselves. My pattern used to be to go chase them in the woods to
Mm.
figure it
Mm.
out. I do not do that anymore. And I'm clear on why I don't do that anymore. Because that is connected to how I survived early life, and that's not how I'm doing that.
Yeah.
So I trust the people to come to me, or I trust my own integrity and inner compass if I'm not feeling great, which I know you've seen me do, where I'm like, I'm unsure. I feel like I might need to like apologize to someone. I need to work
Mm.
through this. Who will talk to me
Hmm.
about? Who will talk to me about like what do I need to? Because I am always looking for something feels off in my body about how I
Yeah.
interacted with them. I want to clean that up. Even if I'm not going to be best friends with that person, I will still do that.
Yeah. Tie up that bow, that energetic ribbon that's
Yeah.
just draining something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I think a piece of that, a very small piece of that, just like having the capacity for, how much is I and as one person have capacity for. And I find that the more that I can embody my fullest truth, the easier it becomes for others to self select, right? In a way where I don't
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
have to be laying down anything other than just more authenticity, and then they can make their decisions, right?
Yeah. I think there's also like these, I mean, so this architecture that I've been working on is really about like the gates of discernment that allow deeper intimacy to come through. And can we be in discernment with who can meet us if we want to go deeper with someone, in a way that allows them to have their dignity back and to not make them wrong
Mm-hmm.
for where they
Mm-hmm.
are or what they want? Because it's so easy to go into this person can't meet me or this person's not allowed in. And it's
Yeah.
not about that. There can be people we
Right.
have incredible connection with, but there's not the capacity, the desire, the alignment in order for that, the containment, in
Yeah.
order for that intimacy to deepen and to sustain. And it doesn't mean that there wasn't something real. And I think
Yeah.
that's where I got jaded at times where I'm like, well, nothing was real then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, it was real. I trust myself that it was absolutely real.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things to point to that are not about a connection not being real
Mm.
or a person failing me.
Yeah.
But there's grief to feel, which is what brings
Yeah.
us back. That's what we're avoiding.
Yeah.
So we go to those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And it's such a beautiful loop, right? That when we can acknowledge that it was real, and then also that grief of like, okay, well then why didn't it, right, go this way that
Yeah.
I was hoping it had, right? So
Yeah.
really such compassion for navigating all those emotions, right?
Yeah.
Without shaming the whole situation or saying it wasn't real in all those ways that we feel like sometimes we think are the only coping mechanism that we have, right, to get through it.
Well, and oftentimes we do need to move through all of that to get to
Yeah.
that place. We need to move through our own, I certainly had to have many victim tantrums for months.
Hmm. Hmm.
So many
Hmm.
tantrums of my own victimhood and move through the I was wronged and I was, this and I was that and people left and I was abandoned and how could they? And, but what was beautiful about that is it allowed me to start to process some of the original grief that was there once I understood it was allowing things to start to move,
Mm.
that hadn't been accessible to me before. And so we get to move through every stage and it gets to take as long as it takes. But once we have the understanding of where we're headed with it, that's
Hmm.
ultimately freeing and in our sovereignty, that can be a North Star, even in the harder moments of, okay, I'll get there. I'm just not there yet. Today, I need to be
Yeah.
really angry about it.
Yeah.
But there's an awareness that we're not the story and that the ultimate story is not real, that this is just a part of the grief process.
Hmm. Hmm. God, this is so good, man. I know we are like there's
I
so
know.
many things that I haven't even gotten to yet. You have this incredible background in acting and singing and voice and all these ways
Mm,
this is integrated into your work. This threshold that you and I are both walking, with our parents,
yeah.
and as creators and leaders and space holders, I just feel like we need like four more episodes
I know.
to
I'm
really
down
just
whenever you want to.
dive deep on all of it. I just am in awe of you and really the way that you navigate life. So with this is sort of our uh, juiciest bow we can wrap on this conversation for today with so much more to come. I would love for you to maybe just share what's on your heart or what you're creating right now or what you're feeling called to in this moment. And then, of
Mhm.
course, let all our listeners know where and how to find you for more.
Oh, yes. So, oh, wow. I'm just like, I am in the learning and like things are coming out of the learning from the feeling and all of it. There's so much really cool understanding coming through. So a big part of my work over the last, 5 or 6 years has been around understanding good girl archetypes, good girl protector archetypes. And so women can definitely find me and take this good girl protector archetype quiz that allows them to understand more, like get their top three good girl
Mm,
protector archetypes. It will give them a lot of really illuminating. They get a top one, that they can understand, and then they get a little bit of information about the other two. And it is
mhm,
just super in depth analysis that shows them basically every area of their life,
mm,
and how the good girl is going to show up. And it really is based deep in nervous system work, plus the behavior that I've seen in women over the last decade plus, as I've been working with dismantling patriarchy and
mm,
women's
mm,
systems and my own. And then I also have this really cool map of the wild daughter and the different houses that she walks through in her development. So think of the wild daughter as like the good girl's the protectors, and the wild daughter is the path, the part of us who is very much alive and in her authenticity, and the sacred
mm,
pulse that never leaves us is going through her own journey. And she goes through these different stages of metamorphosis and alchemy, and it helps you locate yourself in the map. So I have a quiz coming out soon about that as
mm,
well. And so if they go to my site and they take the Girl Protector quiz, or follow me on IG, they're going to start to see this wild daughter mapping quiz come out as well, where they're going to be able to find themselves in the map. Because if we
mm,
know where we are in the map, for instance, if we know we're in the dark woods, that's a completely different assignment than if we're in the house of the patriarchal daughter or we're in the house of healing. They're different
mm.
assignments. It's different medicine. And so,
Wow.
yeah, it'll just help them locate themselves and understand what medicine is most helpful at that time.
Wow. Oh my God, that sounds so incredibly like intriguing and like such a
Mm-hmm.
curious
Oh, you can
thing.
take
Like
it,
I'm like,
Lisa.
I want to
As
go
soon
in
as it's
there.
out
Where's this
publicly,
map?
you can so take it.
I have like this
Oh, I'm going to show it to you.
this sadistic I wanting to like go through all these houses. Like it just sounds like such an adventure.
Oh
Probably
my
not
God,
as much fun
I'll
as
show
I'm
it to
making it
you.
out to be though. Um, Thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we will leave all those links to all of that in the show
Mm-hmm.
notes. Beth, thank you so much for making time for us today. I
Thank you.
really enjoy every
Thank
moment
you.
that I get to be with you, witness you, and grow with you. And so I just, yeah. And our audience here knows I love a good quiz, so they're well primed for that. So go and
Oh, I
take
have all the
that.
quizzes. Don't you? I'm all the quizzes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. All right, dear one, have a blessed and beautiful day. Thank you so much.